Hello, everybody, and welcome to Season 2, Episode 9 of Rift Happens. I'm Justin. I'm joined by my regular co-host over here, Lucas. Lucas, welcome back to Rift Happens. How was your week?
It was pretty good. You know, lots. We're prepping for the ACT at our school. We've had our C9 training going. Had a volleyball tournament this weekend. It has been a very busy week, but I'm also very glad that daylight savings has changed, and so now we don't get to see the Lucas natural lights timer progression that goes on normally when we get to do this.
Did you see that the U.S. Senate unanimously voted to keep that? Right?
I did see that.
Unanimous.
I saw something, but I haven't I need to read it and figure it out because I saw it and I was like, no way. There's no way this is actually going to go through.
I'm not completely. I'm not very well versed in U.S. law and how all that stuff works, so I don't know if it's officially a thing from here on out. But it was very exciting because one, for us disc golfers, once daylight savings time ends and it starts getting dark at 5, then the tosses, the weekly kind of tournaments that you can have on weeknights are kind of gone. They go in hibernation. So I'm pretty stoked for that, for sure.
I will say that I did just look it up, and it is passed in the Senate, but it is held down in the House right now. So we'll see how that goes.
Come on. That's
do the right thing.
Yeah, this is not the political hill to die on. Give the people what they want.
I know I'm selfish. I know there's probably some people out there who probably don't want daylight savings time permanently, but I want to throw some discs at night. I don't have to wait until the summer to be able to play.
What is? I guess it depends on what you prefer daylight hours to be. But I'm trying to think who would fall into that category. Where it's you know what? Yeah, I would love to wake up with the sun, glaring through my window at 5 a.m. and I would love to drive home in the dark. I don't know who strives for that.
Because I will say that was one of the things, and same, Allison. I want to leave school and still have some daylight. I left school last Tuesday and I went on a walk. I haven't been able to do that in ages. Not because I guess I could go on a walk at night, but I live on the beach. I want to be able to see the sunset as it comes down and not just be stuck at my desk all day. So, and then walk out and it's dark.
Speaking of walking, I was conducting some technology professional development before I rushed home to do the podcast, and I was so animated in the PD that my smartwatch went off and thought I was working out. So I'm 20 minutes into the PD and my watch is still going. I have to I try to pull my watch to see what time it is, and it's you've been working out for 24 minutes. I'm like, joke's on you. I never work out. So even got my watch fooled. Oh, nice. Man. Well, thank you for being here for this episode. I will say, go ahead and preview moving forward. We are going into an exciting episode next week, and I want everybody to be aware of the exciting episode that we have. We do have Gavin, who is the CEO and co-founder of Gwoop. He will be our special guest next Monday for Rift Happens. So our listener feedback form that is available every single week, that will be specially geared towards you being able to submit your questions to ask him. So know that if you're not familiar with Gwoop is a free platform for scholastic esports programs to join on, and it's basically a lot of esports kind of warm-up and training games. There's a lot of stat tracking, and you can build your team on there and have almost measurable goals for your players to try to achieve, and it keeps them, talk about clicking accuracy, mouse speed and things of that nature. There's even one with keystrokes and how quickly you respond there. I think that one's pretty neat. But but we'll have him on next week. It's definitely going to be cool. It's going to be our first outside of CR special guest. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, I'm really excited about it. Gwoop is something I've been interested in for a super long time. I've made an account forever ago, but haven't really pushed it on my kids. But it's one of those things that, when I think traditional sports, we think of drills, we think of warm-ups, and that's really lacking in a lot of esports stuff, right? A different curriculum or programs that we can get to gear our kids up for the game without actually playing the game. which is a huge part of a lot of other traditional sports. Like we think working out, we think mental toughness training, stuff like that. So this will be fun.
Yeah, for sure. And it's also entirely browser based, which is what I really like. Mm-hmm. So even if like our school district is a 1-to-1 district, all the kids were given Chromebooks. Well, technically, the kids could be like, jamming out on Group in the middle of class on their Chromebooks. They don't have to necessarily have software download or anything of that nature. So that's really cool, and they're constantly updating it. But either way, be thinking about which questions you want to have for Gavin. He will be here next week, and they're just doing some really cool things for this classic esports space. Be excited to talk to him then. But that is not what we're talking about today. Today we have Season 2, Episode 9. We are going to be talking about itemization once again. This has kind of been our theme here lately. But this one is going to be on active items. But before we get into that, we're going to mix things up a little bit. We're going to cut straight to our listener responses first. Because our question for this week for our listeners was, what removed item, feature, game mode, champion ability, etc., anything that has been removed from the game, do you miss and or wish were back in the game, and why? So that was the question that was posed, and we have a solid 6 responses here from some of our listeners. So we're going to go through these one at a time. I'm going to bless you with the first one. How about that?
Okay. Can't wait. I'm a little nervous.
I see the name.
I see who it's from. Thank you for this. Okay. All right. So our first response is from Mr. Hernandez Teaches, a listener response all-star. From San Antonio, Texas. He misses pink words. He liked that they were invisible and that you could place as many as you wanted and allow people to overcompensate for their teammates, not warding and solo queue. Mm-hmm. I also miss Deathfire Grass. It was my go-to Vagar item. It's probably the only activatable item I've ever used properly. And he also misses Zyra's death passive. It gave me a chance to snipe a player after I died, which was something that I had totally forgotten about. Mm-hmm. Like, I remember Pink Wards and I remember Deathfire Grasp. I had totally forgotten about Zyra's passive until I read this.
And if I remember correctly, one of the reasons why they changed Zyra's passive was because they said it felt bad that she only got to use it after she died. Mm-hmm. But I'm like, do you not know that you have Karthus, Kog'Maw, and Scion in your game?
Oh, yeah. I know that was like a huge complaint when that comment was made. It's like, well, then get rid of all of them, not just the Scion passive. And then they introduced Kimtech as a brand new one later on. So they just clearly did not follow that too much to the letter. Yeah,
I also miss Deathfire Grasp. I'll talk a little bit about Deathfire Grasp a little bit later on. But yeah, for sure, those are some good ones. Ginga Riffith out of Kentucky says, Threes needs to come back. He's talking about Twisted Treeline here. I love Twisted Treeline. Easier to teach friends the game on a more simplified version of the map. I would even be fine if they altered this and made a 1v1 map or a 2v2 map. Magma Chamber, I think, was one that they were working on before. He said, I don't care, but something that requires less total friends online would be great. Easier to get 2 other friends online than 4 other friends. On a consolation note, PvE game modes are underrated. The Odyssey event and Doom bots were the most fun I've ever had on League. Intermediate bots don't provide a challenge, but I hard prefer PvE than PvP, and our current forms of PvE are incredibly lacking.
Yeah, I wholeheartedly support the idea that the Odyssey game mode was the best game Riot has ever created. Like, I will die on that hill. Wow. That was so much fun. I'm so frustrated it never came back. That is probably the most League of Legends I ever played in like a 1 month time span. I spent so much time in that event.
I did. I really liked Odyssey. I liked Doombots. I thought Doombots was a lot of fun. But Twisted Treeline was my jam. Like, I remember trying to hit gold in solo duo and then turn around and like, all right, I hit it in solo duo. Now I got to hit gold in Twisted Treeline because you could get an additional chroma if you got gold in that. But the meta in that was really cool too, because you would run you could run like a smite, like kind of bruiser top, and you could kind of pseudo farm the jungle. They even had like some funnel strats in it with Yi. Definitely really cool. I'm not going to go into another one yet. We'll get through the rest of the responses, and if nobody else mentions it, I'll throw something else out there.
There you go.
All right, go ahead and take our next one.
Sounds good. Our next one is Sones from the Great Mighty Sip, or Mississippi. He's right down the road from me. And very simply, he misses Zizzarat and Banner of Command spams, which, like, as a top lane player, so much cheese. It was so much fun. Because one that we have not mentioned yet, and I don't think I saw mentioned in the rest of these when I took a quick look at them, Zizzarat, Banner of Command, and Omen Wrecker were always these really fun, niche little items you could take to just make somebody go, wait, what?
It's old school hole breaker.
Oh yeah, I used to. It was fun. If I would get salty a lot if I was playing a top laner and my team wasn't doing too hot and I was super fed. I'd snag Zizzarat, I'd snag Banner Command, I'd snag Omen Wrecker, especially Omen Wrecker because it was a really cheap item relatively. So if I was super far ahead and I couldn't, and my lane opponent was playing safe, boom, pop that Omen Wrecker, instant dive, get another kill, and get out. Now they took it out because it wasn't super useful, but yeah, I love those items
for sure. Aaron, Coach Mustang out of Los Angeles, her response is, I love the rotating game mode Doombots of Doom, who didn't have their heart skip a beat when the Lux Doombot threw out 6 or 8 laser beams in every direction around her. You could set the difficulty of the Doombots and really challenge yourself against the absurdly OP bot abilities, like a triple rocket grab from Blitzcrank. Set that difficulty to 100 and die laughing. I agree. She also conveniently linked the abilities, but I cannot post that in the I might be able to. Yeah, so I'm gonna post this in the chat. Hopefully my audio I don't get a feedback loop or anything. But yeah, it was I love Doombots. This is our second kind of Doombot answer, but it was so much fun. I remember they gave out a special icon if you were able to beat it, which was really neat. So you kind of you got through it, you accomplished it. But what were do you remember what the Odyssey rewards were? Was it the same thing?
Odyssey rewards were no, they were really generous with their tokens. Okay. So I remember getting, like, by the end of it, being able to purchase like 10 or 12 Odyssey orbs just from playing the game mode a ton. So I got a ton of free skins out of it just because I got far enough along in that. So.
Yeah. I definitely think the PvE game modes are a ton of fun. Earth has kind of lost its fun on me. I don't really play Earth anymore. It was great when it first came out, but yeah, I would love something completely different, like the PvE modes for sure.
Yeah, I feel like that's pretty common. I feel like I've got a lot of friends who just don't like Earth anymore. So oh well.
All right, hit us with our next one.
Yeah, next up, I just get all the Mississippi guys today. Next up, we have Chase, who we may remember from 2 or 3 episodes back, also from Mississippi, a little further down the road from me than Stones. And he misses Nexus Splits, the ability to play champion from level 1 to 18 in a short period of time and seeing the results of different builds.
For sure. And I would say, like, for me, the Dominion, that was my game mode.
I was really surprised I didn't see any Dominion responses.
Yeah. That's why I kind of scrolled. I looked at response 6 real quick to make sure nobody said it. But that's what I meant. And it served kind of the same purpose as Nexus Blitz does for Chase. It was like, okay, this brand new champion came out, or there's a champion that I really want to learn how to play, and I don't want to take it into like a full-blown match of League of Legends through Summoner's Rift. So I would load into Dominion so I could, kind of get the hang of the combos and, if there were auto attack resets and, kind of the best way to build or at least go about, approaching a fight. But yeah, I think Nexus Blitz is kind of the new way to do that if it were a permanent game mode, right?
Yeah.
Finally, Cannon Teach out of Colorado. He misses the pre-rework Mundo W. Says, rip to power farming for 20 minutes in the jungle and becoming an absolute unit. He still goes where he pleases, just burns you less in the process. Unfortunate.
Very unfortunate.
Oh, if I scroll down further, he has Mundo listed about 30 times.
I was ready for you to read them all out.
I don't recall playing much Mundo before they reworked him, so I don't know. I can't recall what they changed much about his W. His W was the Circle of Fire. Right?
His W was a Circle of Fire, and it was constant. It wasn't the little burst of electricity.
Okay.
His Q was mostly the same. His E now is, I believe it's just is an auto attack reset, and I think it may just be one extra damage auto, but it might be more. But it used to not be an auto attack reset, and it was just like a flat bonus once you used it.
Okay.
And then his ult stayed the same too. So,
well, do you have anything that you missed that you'd like to add that nobody brought up?
No, I'm just going to reiterate Twisted Tree Line. I grew up learning how to play on Twisted Tree Line. I think I've told the story on here before, but my friends taught me how to play on Twisted Tree Line first. We would hop in on some threes games. They used to think it was funny to tell me that the best Garen build was to build 5 Warmogs and an Atma's Impaler. So that's there's some way back in the match history, 10 years ago, there's some English teacher 5 Warmog, Atma's Impaler, Garen games. So.
Did you ever do like 5 Sunfire Capes on Evelyn?
Never.
So yeah, used to apparently you could stack Sunfire Capes on Evelyn and it wouldn't break her stealth, so she could just walk next to people and just burn them. Just stand there and just burn them.
My personal favorite thing about this tree line is that it used to have its own ranked teams queue. So like way back before, we used to have clubs, and they got rid of clubs. Well, before clubs, there was a legitimate, you could, hop in as a group of 5 and only play against other groups of 5 on a ranked ladder. And there used to be one for Twisted Tree Line where you could do it with 3s, but it is present no longer in our lives.
Yeah, and the epic monster on there was Vilemaw, the big spider.
Oh yeah.
And you could go and if your whole team danced in front of Vilemaw will start dancing too. And I think if I remember correctly, I think it debuffed him slightly. I could be mistaken. I could be wrong there, but I thought it did. All I know is every time we went to go take Vilemaw, we always danced in front of him, whether it did any good or not. I don't know. Very cool. All right, so we're gonna talk active items today. So we have Boris the shopkeeper there again. Before we get into the current active items that are in the game and how, Lucas, how you and I see them used, I do want to take a trip down memory lane to all the active items that have sailed off into the sunset. Some of these were actually mentioned in our listener feedback. We saw Banner of Command and ZZ Rot as well. Deathfire Grasp was mentioned, and I'll talk a little bit about that. A couple of these others on here have gone through some renames, so some keen eyes that are watching the video right now may say, "Wait a minute, that rocket belt is not gone." But that's because this is Hextech Proto Belt, not rocket belt. So I was a little generous, and you also have Shirelia's Reverie, not Shirelia's Battle Song. So I made a couple of executive decisions there to put in some items that have just gone through some renames. But which of these items that have been removed do you have a fond memory of, other than the ones you mentioned, that you'd share?
I always remember Spooky Ghosts.
Old Twin Shadows, yeah.
Twin Shadows, which I believe had a little Easter egg where if you did look up like Spooky Ghosts, it would pop up instead.
Oh, cool. Yeah, I didn't know that.
Yeah, so if you looked it up in the shop whenever you were in game trying to find it, it would still pop up. I loved it. I mean, I didn't play support too often, but it was always fun. And anytime it got used, all my friends were like, "Oh, I'm using Spooky Ghosts," or "Oh, look at the Spooky Ghosts go." So always fun, always exciting. Yeah,
I like Twin Shadows. One of my favorites was Deathfire Grasp, back when AP Tristana mid was a thing. So you just stack the AP, get a Deathfire Grasp, and you could rocket jump in, throw the bomb down, get your auto attacks in. You would Deathfire Grasp because it amplifies all magic damage that the enemy would take. So while you're leaping, while you're in the air, you activate Deathfire Grasp on them, launch your bomb on it, pop it all the way, and then you ultimate them away, which scaled with AP and did a buttload of base damage on top of it too. And then it was amplified by 10% from the Deathfire Grasp. So it was basically like Assassin AP mid Tristana. It was incredible. It had zero counterplay. That was the problem.
Oh yeah, no, it was fun. I remember that. I got terrorized by it a few times.
The other one that stands out to me is Hextech Gunblade. If am I not mistaken in saying that was the last AD/AP item in the game?
I think so, because now we have what the there's no, I don't remember if there's any AD/AP anymore, but now we have the Omnivamp, so it's kind of like the blended mix where they're just kind of letting you benefit from both without building both.
Yeah, I remember like this was kind of a premier item on old Akali, who benefited both from the AP and AD, maybe Kale, because not only did you get the Omnivamp,
used to get it.
Yeah,
pretty fun.
Crystalline Flask here, which is now, I guess, like Corrupting Potion, kind of does the same thing, except it has the burn attached to it. Yeah. We did mention Omewrecker, which is now in Volibear's ult. Banner Command, which is now in kind of innately inside of Hullbreaker.
Yeah.
The Sightstone, the blue Sightstone, and then you could upgrade it to the ruby Sightstone. You didn't have to complete a support quest line in order to get access to your rewards. All you had to do was get 800 gold, I think.
Yeah, you just buy it real early and have those. Nice. Now they kind of cater them, combine this with the support items, so you actually get some stats instead of just the health.
that was the big gripe. Was I'm forced to get this item, but I'm losing a slot where I could have some survivability or some AP damage or something like that. And then the old Bilgewater Cutlass, which built into Blade of the Ruin King, that had an active on it as well. It and Hextech Gunblade, I believe, had the same active. It was basically just a slow, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
Yep. And then you and I both kind of mentioned Spellbinder down here. Not really. That was in the game for a hot minute, and then it was gone. So
yeah, it was real soon. I mean, this can't have been more than 2 seasons ago, right?
I don't think so. Yeah, I think you're right. I think it was season 10 that it showed up, and then that was it. It was just gone. Never to be added again. But so I don't really have any stories about it, but I can talk about our current active items. So that's why I wanted to go through. We just kind of go through these briefly, talk about how we're seeing them used, what champions are building them, why those champions are building them potentially, and then kind of go from there. So first we're going to tackle Mythics. These are your 2 AP Mythics that have active items or active abilities to them. First one is Everfrost. This one unleashes a fan of icy shards in a cone in the target direction that deals some AP damage to all the enemies hit, slows them by 65%. But there's also a center line in that where enemies that are stuck in the center of that are rooted for the same duration instead. So it's an additional kind of root item. And you being a top laner, you really don't see a lot of Everfrost, do you?
No, I don't. I mean, I feel like I see it mostly when I'm roaming around and engaging in those skirmishes. I feel like there's a lot of utility mid laners that take it. I think people like Silas, who aren't going to blow anyone up, but are going to be alive and in a fight for a while, so they want to make sure that people stay on top of them as well. Yeah, I don't really see it a ton.
I'm seeing it a lot, as you mentioned, with champions like Silas. I see it with Ahri, Veigar, any champion I feel like that has a slow CC ability, in the sense that it's either very telegraphed or it's a slow skill shot. So like Ahri Charm, the Everfrost cast is faster than Ahri Charm. The Everfrost cast is faster than the Veigar Cage going down. So I see it kind of helping those champions when, if you're getting up close and kind of contesting CS, you hit them with the Everfrost first, and it pretty much guarantees that your CC ability is going to land after that. So I see it used that way, but it could also be in some of those situations where, like you said, you've got somebody that's like hyper mobile, and maybe you want another form of lockdown on there as well. So like I'll run it on Lysandra, so just like even more CC than like the 2 forms that she already has. So yeah, that being one of them. Then we have this one is, what is it? Is it Proto Belt now? It's not Rocket Belt. Rocket Belt's the old one.
Yeah, it's Proto Belt now.
Proto Belt now. Supersonic dash units forward, and then it unleashes an arc of 7 rockets in the same direction. Afterwards, you gain 30% bonus movement speed while moving toward nearby enemy champions for 1.5 seconds. So again, another item you don't really see much in the top lane, but I'm sure you've encountered some junglers that would even build this sometimes.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I will say that I did just notice that I did look it up real quick just to make sure. We were wrong. It was originally Proto Belt, and now it's Rocket Belt.
Ah, okay. It's always good to fact check.
Yeah, and once again, one I don't really have a ton of experience with. I don't really see it up top too often. I think I've gotten it on Rumble a couple times, but that's it. And I don't really play Rumble a ton, so definitely not.
And it's not so much for the damage; it's more for the gap close.
Yeah, it's more for the utility. We see it a lot with either AP people who don't have any gap close, think like any AD carry that would take a different mythic item we're going to take later, Gale Force, or Assassins too. I mean, I'm trying to think, who was the last person I played that had Proto Belts?
I've seen it on Diana.
Do you take it on a yeah? Do you take it on a Kali or do you take something else?
I have taken it on a Kali. Sometimes I go not Riftmaker. It's the other, like Night Harvester if I want more burst. But it really depends on like who I'm playing into. So if it's something like a Caitlyn who has the she can net away, or if it's a Tristana who can W away. Anybody that has sort of those built-in dashes, maybe even an Ezreal that can arcane shift away, anytime they can exert or use that ability in addition to a flash, I like to have this to help close the gap.
Okay. Pretty cool.
Now, let's get into the ones that you are going to know a heck of a lot more than I am.
Let's go.
We're going to get into our fighter mythics. There are 2 activatable fighter mythics, one being Gore Drinker, the other one is Stridebreaker, but Gore Drinker, we'll take a look at that one first. Its active item item activation is Thirsting Slash, deals 175% base AD physical damage to enemies in a 450 radius centered around you. You heal for 25% of your AD and 10% of your missing health for each enemy champion hit. And this I didn't know. I didn't know that it was reduced by ability haste, so you could probably have this off of cooldown quite a bit.
Oh, yeah. It's a very fun ability. It's very, very fun for fighters. Anybody that's going to be in a group of people dealing a ton of damage, probably getting focused down a bit, especially if you're trying to bait someone into a fight with you when your team's nearby. Hop in the middle of them, hit your active, boom, all of a sudden you've gone from 20% health, a third of HP, whatever it is, and now you're nearly full health again, and you're good to go. You can fight for a lot longer.
It does build out of Iron Spike Whip, which is down at the bottom of the screen. Iron Spike Whip has actually both of these items are built out of Iron Spike, right?
Yes, they do. Yes, they do. And these are Iron Spike Whip is mostly useful for trades in lane and farming in lane. You don't get the extra bonuses. For example, we'll talk about Stridebreaker in a second, but you don't get the increased health gain that you would from Thirsting Slash. It's just some flat damage, and that's it.
Okay. With Stridebreaker, its item activation is called Halting Slash. That kind of does the same. It deals 175% base AD physical damage to enemies in that same radius around you. But instead of your healing for 25% of your AD, you slow those enemies that you hit by 40% for 3 seconds. You can move this while casting. It also has its cooldown reduced there. So I guess my question would be, how do you know when to build Stridebreaker versus Gore Drinker?
A lot of it depends on kit. Okay. I'm trying to think of... I actually have a champion where I build both of these depending on the game, so I can talk about that for now. I play a lot of Fiora. Love Fiora. She's a very fun champion. She has a lot of interesting builds and runes that you can go. I take Gore Drinker if I am planning on being in a lot of extended fights. So maybe the other team has a lot of fighters, maybe a couple tanks, or maybe not a ton of tanks, but a few fighters that we're not really going to be able to burst down, so we're probably expecting some long, drawn-out fights. Then I'm going to go Gore Drinker and Conqueror to pair those together. Those are going to let me get a lot of healing off and let me stay in my fight longer. It's just a nice ability to make sure that you are staying in the fight as long as possible.
Do these give you... I don't know if you would know this. This may be a like a question I left out. Do you know if these give you like an auto attack reset, or they're just considered an ability? I guess just something completely separate.
I should know that because auto attack resets are a really big part of Fior's kit. I want to say no, but I don't know for sure.
I wouldn't think that they would because it's an item active. It would almost like be giving auto attack resets to champions that don't have them.
Well, you used to get it with the Tiamat active that you used to have when you had to activate Tiamat.
Yeah.
So it used to be an active, an auto attack reset with Ravenous Hydra, but not with Titanic Hydra.
Oh,
so,
okay.
I don't know. I don't know if there's a lot of. I don't know how much logic there is behind the auto attack resets, but we'll see.
Yeah, for sure. I used to see. So we used to see Stridebreaker on Nocturne. And I think it was one of the reasons why we saw it on him so much was because the slow was like giga busted. So now it's at 40%, but I think it used to be like 65%, or maybe it was 80. It was some ridiculously high slow percentage, and then they gutted it, and so we stopped seeing it on him. But it was a way for him to really kind of zoom in on the AD carry, and if it's already an AD carry that's immobile or a squishy target that's immobile, you pop Halting Slash and they're slowed even more. And it's basically like it used to be almost as if they were rooted. The slow was so high, almost like a wither.
Yeah, it was definitely aggressive, and you can kind of see that in the way that different champions take it. You think of Garen, for example, is a champion that will take Stridebreaker a lot. You activate your Q, run on top of them, silence them, activate Stridebreaker, and now this person cannot escape your Whirling of Death. I also like to take it on Fiora when I'm against an opponent that's a little squishier, or maybe a team full of squishy people, and I'll take it with Press the Attack instead of my normal Conqueror or Grasp of the Undying.
Interesting.
So it's very fun to hop on somebody, activate it, pop ult, boom, now you have your vitals ready to go, and they are just, getting burst down pretty quickly. So.
Okay, yeah, I guess that makes sense. I mean, if you're in a thing where you've got, because with the Fiora vitals having to kind of dance around them and hit, kind of all four corners of that, you'd probably value the slow over that. But you do get some like Q resets, like your Q gets on a pretty low cooldown eventually, right? Where you can kind of be dashing around. Or if you proc a vital, does it give you like a reduced cooldown on it or something?
The cooldown is only changed when you land it on somebody. So if you land it on a minion or on a jungle monster or a champion, it's just a flat decrease in cooldown, so it doesn't change the vitals.
Okay, cool. All right, awesome. Well, let's get into a couple more mythics. We have these do not necessarily go together, okay? But they're only one of the kind that we have. We have our assassin mythic and we have our tank mythic. Both of these have active parts to them. The first one is Prowler's Claw, which has some interesting champions that we see it on. But we have Prowler's Claw. Its active is called Sand Swipe. You dash in a line through the target enemy champion's location, and upon completing the dash, you deal 75 plus some bonus AD physical damage to them, and then you increase the damage that you deal to them by 15% for the next 3 seconds. So it's kind of like old Deathfire Grasp. You cast it and you do the increase. I have seen this in the top lane, but it's been on the terror that is Lethality Scion.
Yeah, I don't know if terror is the right word. I feel like it's just meme at this point. Sometime I run into the Scion, I'm just like, what are you doing?
It's terrible. Like if you're a mid lane squishy mage or an AD carry and you're trying to defend a tower, and he doesn't care, he just dies to the tower, and then he saves this item activation because he can cast active items when he's in zombie form. And so then he dashes through you and then just wails on you with like 3 or 4 punches and you're dead.
Yeah, it's definitely not fun. I would say that's probably one of the least fun builds I've ever played against. Maybe only Karma is like the least. It could be worse.
It's shown up on Ezreal.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Because the changes to Divine Sunderer, Ezreal's kind of moved away from that one a little bit and kind of building more like Essence Reaver. And when he goes Essence Reaver, that's his Sheen item. So versus going Divine Sunderer or going Trinity Force, he'll end up going some sort of lethality, or he can go Crown of the Shattered Queen. We've seen that one. But if he wants to go more aggressive, he'll either go this or Dustblade. And I think they debate which one is better, but I don't think you use the item that much. I've seen it on Gangplank too, but you don't find yourself in many situations to even use the active. It's more, I think, more for the raw stats of the item.
Interesting. Yeah, I'm kind of. I think it's the same way. You use it a couple times on Gangplank, but it's mostly there just for the increased lethality and burst.
It is fun on Pike, but now I think Pike likes to play with Dustblade. But I really like if you dash with Pike and you didn't quite get far enough to snare them with your E, you can sand swipe through them and extend the range of your E. So then you obviously you then stun them, and then you do a buttload of damage to them, and it's usually enough to end up getting the execute with your ult. So cool item for sure. Fair and balanced. Supercharge, or the Turbo Chem Tank, is our tank mythic with an active on it. It is called Supercharge. For 4 seconds, grant 40% bonus movement speed and ghosting when moving towards a turret or visible enemy champions within 2,000 units. After the duration, or when an enemy champion is within a certain range, you emit a shockwave, slowing the enemy champions within that range by 50%. This is kind of the more traditionally built on tanks. We did see this pop up on like Diana and Akali a few patches ago.
For a little while.
Yeah, until it got nerfed. But for the most part, it's tanks.
Are you seeing it very much at all anymore?
Not really. I've seen it. It popped up on a Hecarim game not too long ago, like in LCS. But beyond that, I'm really not seeing. I'm seeing more Sunfire Cape or Sunfire Aegis. Yeah,
I'm seeing a lot of Sunfire, or flip side, I used to take it on Ornn for a little while, just a bit. And then Frostfire got buffed, and this got like a little tweaked, and then just have only taken Frostfire now.
Yeah, they changed the way that you gain the stacks with him, because there's another passive on this where as you're moving, you're gaining stacks, and then instead of this doing consistent damage all around you, you expel those stacks on attack, and so then you do like this burst of damage. But tanks aren't really looking to do bursty damage, so you're kind of like, I guess you would get. I think it synergizes well with Hecarim's kit because he gets the bonus, damage from his movement speed. So it does synergize with that, and I think it could be, potentially useful for like Nunu maybe when he's snowballing in, so he gets a faster snowball. But then again, you could run Predator in place of that. But then Phase Rush is also a thing, so if you value the movement speed within combat as opposed to just charging in for a gank. But I'm with you. I really don't see it as much as I used to.
Yeah, be interested to see the pick rates for that one.
Yeah, that'd be a good stat to look up for sure. Next we have 3 more mythics. This is the only mythic that is most commonly built in the bot lane for AD carries. We mentioned Prowler's Claw earlier on Ezreal, but we do see this active mythic item. This is Gale Force. Its active is called Cloudburst. Dash to the target location, though not through terrain, so you can't hop walls, and fire 3 homing missiles at the most wounded enemy within a certain distance of you at the end of the dash, prioritizing enemy champions. Each missile does a certain amount of damage, increasing based on the target's missing health. I really like Gale Force. I know you played ADC last season in Coach Rivals, so you have some experience with this as well. But you can definitely find yourself in some hairy situations depending on how aggressive you are.
Oh yeah, I mean, I truly think that it is one of the most unique and game-changing items they've added to a specific role. I mean, I'm thinking of champions like Jhin, where one of the only real ways to counter Jhin was to pick somebody that could dive them and stay on top of them, right? Or pick somebody that could easily close that gap, because Jhin does not have any kind of gap closer or way to get out of a fight except for flash. Now with this item, which is very good on him, especially if you are trying to use it aggressively to knock someone down a little low over health percentage to get that 4th shot off and kill them. it's also good for surviving in these fights and staying alive in ganks, which is really, really useful for him. So I know it's been good on a lot of AD carries. Definitely, I don't know how many people like it, but definitely a great item that they've added as far as how many people pick it up and how game-changing it's been.
Yeah, and I like that when they introduced Mythics, they were talking about one of the things they wanted to do was diversify play styles. So or diversify item builds. So choosing your Mythic based on the type of game you wanted to play at that time. So you can adapt and have these different builds. And some people are still critics of it because they see some Mythics rise in popularity and being the standard stock build, but I don't think that's necessarily the case for AD carries. I think AD carries has the most diversity as far as their Mythic items, but I really liked Gale Force because I used it with Xayah, and I would use it to reposition to pull my feathers through. So instead of like having a flash feather pull, I would have a kind of cloudburst feather pull as well. And then I could dash to close the distance, or to extend that distance even more. So there are definitely some really cool things. We are seeing it, though, on Tryndamere Top Lane, though. Have you encountered that?
I've encountered it a bit. I've played it a bit. It's a thing. I don't know. I'm not very good at Tryndamere. I'm not very good at timing when I should go in, especially as glass cannony as he's built currently. It's fun.
I hate playing against Tryndamere. I will say that.
No, it's just
as someone who plays squishy champions, it's a terror.
Tryndamere was one of those where I hated playing against it, so I thought, all right, well, let me turn around and do this to the people I'm playing against. And I was like, no, I'm not very good at it either. So
support mythics, we have 2 here, and I do like both of these items. I spent a long time playing support. First, we have Locket, which its active is Devotion. You grant allied champions within 850 radius a shield for basically 200 365 damage, but it's based on their level that decays over 2.5 seconds. I think it's a fantastic item that is kind of conditional. I don't know that you would necessarily always build this, but I can think of a few scenarios where it's like, yeah, I think that extra shield would be really, really good.
It's I really like it. It feels very nice to have as a support player. It just kind of fits really thematically in. I love when an item fits like that, right? Where this is an item that, as the support champion, your goal is to more than anything else, just in the name, right? You're supporting your team, whether that is through helping with initiation, whether it is to help peel, whether that is to do a little damage, right? And so for our champions that are peeling, or even for our champions that are initiating and then trying to stay alive in these fights, just I don't know if it's nice to have that big shield going across your entire team. So
yeah, for sure. Our Carter is saying Locket versus Execute champs is their favorite. So yeah, it could be really good. Into Assassins, you have somebody trying to dive your ADC. You can pop the Locket active to try to give them a little bit of health to try to survive that burst. I think it's really great into Karthus. So anytime his ult, you see the ult coming down, you tell the team, all right, everybody group up. Everybody gather around me, and you pop Locket to try to absorb some of the damage. I think it's really good with Taric. I think this should be the go-to item for Taric players, even though he could use Shirelia's, he could use Imperial Mandate, he could use any number of mythics. But I think this was really good because when you cast your ultimate on Taric, you have the kind of that activation time where the ultimate is coming down before your team is fully immune. I like the Devotion active on Locket to be able to help survive any damage that would be coming in during that time, and then it kind of guarantees that your ultimate, not guarantees, but pretty close to guarantee that your ultimate is going to come in time, and actually your team can take advantage of it for sure. Yep. Next one we have Shirelia's, I believe it's a Battle Song now. It used to be Reverie. But Shirelia's Battle Song, its active is called Inspire. Grants you and all allies within 1,000 units of you 30% bonus movement speed for 4 seconds. So this is the zoom item, and I tend to see it used with other champions that also have zooming in their kits, and so they just go like extra zooming with Shirelia's.
Yeah, it's been fun. I know we pop it all the time. I'm trying to think of who I think when we play in our fives, our organized fives games, our support likes to take it on like Lulu or something, and it's just nice to have that little bit of a speed up when you are running away or chasing someone down, trying to extend the fight or escape the fight. So
I think it's a good supplemental item because, like, even when we go back to the episode where we were talking about what like checkboxes do we tick when we try to build a team comp, and you know, if you have a team comp that doesn't have a lot of hard engage or doesn't have any hard engage, this doesn't necessarily replace that. But if you have one particular champion that has a very long range engage tool, this could be used to supplement to help get the rest of your team there in time.
Yeah, for sure.
And I'm trying to, my mind is, I guess, you know, maybe something like a Pantheon or something. You know, if Pantheon's going to hard engage from like a screen or two away, you know, you pop or this so the rest of the team can go in.
Yeah, when you take that Ashe Lulu bot lane, right? You've got your Ashe ult, and you've got, you know, Lulu that can build Shirelias, and you land a good stun, and all of a sudden it's go time, right? Like your team's speeding up on the way in. So I also really like taking it when you can stack it on other abilities, right? I love seeing like a Kled comp with Sivir and Shirelias. They just zoom in all over the place.
So you
maybe not the most efficient, but very fun.
Kled, Sivir, and then you can take Karma. And so you have the Mantra Shield that also gives the speed, pop Shirelias, pop the Sivir ult, and then the Kled ult. I think you break the game at that point.
For sure.
We also have, so we get away from Mythics. Obviously, these are some other active items we have, but these are support warding items. So pretty straightforward. We're not going to go through all these, but I think this was a great change to the game. We kind of touched on it earlier. We used to have the Sight Stone and then the Ruby Sight Stone, and then now you have these little mini quests that you can complete as a support player to get access to bonus stats and bonus wards. And then later on you end up getting, and the one thing that I did not put on here, there's an item that I know that I'm missing. It is the brand new warding item that came out this season. Which is it, Vigilant Wardstone or something like that? Yeah,
it's where you can buy it'll give you some health and let you stack up some pink wards, right?
And then when you upgrade it, you end up being able to place more than one control ward at a time.
Yeah,
and that's really cool as well. So I do not have that one on here, but that is also a warding item. Predator boots. So obviously, if you take the Predator Keystone, then your boots become an active item as well, and you do not have to have tier 2 boots for this. You can do this with the brown plastic bag or paper bag shoes that you would put on. It puts the little wolf down there in the bottom right hand corner, and now you have a zoomy pair of boots. I see these, I guess, on Nunu. I'm seeing it in Vhagar in the mid lane too, because it helps you close the distance and be able to drop your cage. But beyond that, I don't see it very much.
I mean, I'm still thinking Annie with Predator is one of those terrifying things you can face. It's just, you know, that's one of Annie's whole things. Just like the Jhin with Gale Force, right? Is if they don't have any kind of movement speed or gap close, then they get a little less scary until they pop that Predator. They're level 6. They have the stun ready to go. And they are sprinting at your team full tilt. So definitely one of the scariest things you can see on the Rift.
For sure. Some legendaries. So we're getting into our non-mythics, non-support or keystone related. We talked about Anathema's Chains a little bit last week. Something that's kind of a situational item. It's active. It's called Vow, where you designate the target enemy champion as your nemesis, and you gain stacks of Vendetta over time. And once you have the full stacks, you basically do they do less damage to you, and they have reduced tenacity versus you as well. So we talked about kind of niche things. Gargoyle Stoneplate is the next one. Its active is called Monolith. Gain a shield for 100, decaying over 2.5 seconds, and you gain a 25% increase in size while active. So a couple interesting things about Gargoyle Stoneplate. I have this listed under tank legendaries, but if you watch the Immortals versus TSM game yesterday, then you would have seen Power of Evil build Gargoyle Stoneplate on Cassiopeia as like his, I think it was his third item, maybe? It could have been his second item. I think he went, Legendaries first, and then he may have gone straight into Gargoyles after that. And apparently it is a legit thing. Like all the Cassiopeia mains say, yes, you always get this item.
Awesome. I mean, that's not super surprising, because wasn't the big drawback to taking Gargoyles on a damage heavy champion that it used to decrease the amount of damage you did?
I believe so. I think so. Yeah.
I could have sworn that old Gargoyles used to, when you popped it, yes, you got a huge shield. Yes, you got the increased size, but you did less damage. And so it was really good on tanks, because they weren't trying to do too much damage in general, but it was also decent on burst champions, because you would like throw your kit down, pop Gargoyles, and then once it disappeared in a few seconds, hopefully your cooldowns were back up and you could use them again. But now that it's just the flat shield and size, I mean, we think of Cassiopeia as like the machine gun spellcaster, right? Like she is throwing down whatever. I can't even remember I don't know what the ability is. I haven't played Cassiopeia in years. But she's throwing down those fangs constantly.
Twin fang.
Right? Constantly, twin fang, yeah.
Yep. Constantly
doing damage. And yeah, it makes sense that she would want something that keeps her alive as much as possible. So
yeah, so we're seeing it, and I was basically on Reddit today. I was reading, because in the post game match between Immortals and TSM, of course, everybody's flaming Power of Evil's build. Power of Evil is known to have like experiment with his builds, like this mad scientist thing. He was, especially like with Orianna, he was building Nashor's Tooth on Orianna to kind of maximize his auto attack damage and things of that nature. So he's like, people are used to him experimenting with this, but they were like hard flaming his build in this game. And then there was a Reddit post today where somebody popped in and was like, listen, I'm an old Cassiopeia main, and he listed a bunch of other Cassiopeia mains, and we all agree that in most cases, and even in like the Korean solo queue, the top Korean Cassiopeia players are building Gargoyle Stoneplate for that very reason. You say, if you're dead, you do no damage. So this, since she doesn't buy boots, she has, in theory, extra gold to spend. And so you get this, you do a ton of sustained fast damage. So you don't necessarily need all the itemization to do burst. So you get this instead, pop it so that you can live a little bit longer and continue the damage output. So I think could be similar to something like Kog'Maw. Like we would see Kog'Maw build, some tanky items, this one that we're about to mention. So yeah, really not much different than that.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense, because it's the same reason why Ezreals take Crown Guard, right? Or why any mid laner against a long drawn out team fight, or assassins would take Crown Guard to make sure that you stay alive longer and do more damage.
Next item is Randuin's Omen. This one's gone through some changes, but it does have an active here that is unleash a shockwave around you that slows nearby enemies by 99%. That is a gigantic slow, by the way, but it only slows them by 1/4 of a second and reduces their attack damage by 10% and critical strike damage by 20% for 4 seconds. I actually learned something here. I do not play any champions that would build Randuins. I knew that it did the shockwave that slowed, but I did not know that it effectively crippled their attack damage and crit damage for that much.
Yeah, it's really good when you're taking it on a tank and you are hopping onto an enemy AD carry, just because they can't really afford to peel you off at that point, right? They're kind of relying on their armor pin and their crit to kind of shred you after a little while, and when you are reducing that critical strike damage and their attack speed, it's a lot harder for them to melt you. So you get a little bit of time to not just get on top of them so they're not longer doing damage to your team, but also so they're not really doing as much damage to you. So it's a really neat little item.
One thing I wanted to kind of revisit with Gargoyle Stoneplate, this and the elixirs, which for some reason I didn't put elixirs in our slide deck either. But Elixir of Iron and Gargoyle Stoneplate, if I'm not mistaken, these are the only 2 items in the game that give you increased size.
Yes, because I think the other things that do so are just champion kits. Zach, the more health he builds, the bigger he gets. So,
and there's not a lot of stuff in the game that is impacted by your champion size. Like I know, like Tom Kench's Q, its hitbox is wider, I believe, based on how large he is. But beyond that, my mind is struggling to find what else in the game benefits from the increase. I mean, it makes you bigger, and so it makes your hitbox larger. So I guess if you really want to absorb damage, you make yourself a larger target so that you can better protect your teammates, in theory. But beyond that, I mean, can you think of anything that I'm not thinking of?
I don't think so.
Maybe it. Okay. Awesome.
Yeah, that is it.
I really do. I think that's it. It's just such an odd stat. Like, hey, by the way, you're gonna get 50%.
You're gonna
larger.
gain. You're gonna get bigger.
Yeah.
I don't know what are you gaining from that. Just maybe they'll click on me instead of my teammates.
I guess. Yeah. You just body block, I guess. An AD legendary. The only AD legendary that we have that also has an item active is Youmuu's Ghostblade. Its active is called Wraith Step. You gain 20% bonus movement speed and ghosting for 6 seconds. So we've seen this word ghosting. We saw it on, what was it? What was the item that we saw? We saw ghosting on Turbo Chem Tank. And I thought we saw ghosting on something else. I could be wrong. But ghosting is a term here, and you kind of have to understand what that means. Ghosting is basically there's no minion blocking, correct?
Yes.
I think some champions have this built into their kit. I think Kassadin has it built into his passive. He has permanent ghosting, if I remember correctly. There may be one more, but this active item does give you that, but it's primarily for the move speed. I don't really see the gamer like, yeah, I really want ghosting. I really want ghosting.
I don't want to be blocked by these minions. You know, I just want to be able to run freely through them as I chase down my lane opponents. Yeah, no, I mean it's mostly for that movement speed. Works very similarly to the way Chem Tank would, or the way that what did we just talk about? Shirelia's would, where you're able to close that gap on some champions that might have a bit hard of a time. So it's very useful for your assassins that are trying to get on top of people.
Yeah, basically anybody that's building lethality and needs to run you down. And I mentioned this earlier when I said Prowler's Claw on Scion. I've seen this on Scion as well.
Yes, I have.
Prowler's Claw, and then you pop this and you hit one of his abilities, and he is straight zooming.
Oh boy.
Support legendaries. We have, I believe we just had. Oh, we actually have 4 support legendaries here. The first one is Knight's Vow. Its active is called Pledge. Actually, both of these two. So you have Knight's Vow and Zeke's. Both of these require a partner to tether to, or kind of like activate on them. But the first one, Knight's Vow Pledge, is designated allied champion as worthy, forming a tether between you and them. Champions can only be designated as worthy by 1 Knight's Vow at a time. And then once you designate them as worthy, the passive with the item is that all the support mains in the chat are going to flame me for this if I don't get it. I believe you take you take some of their damage that they are receiving, if I'm not mistaken, and then some of the damage. I can't remember if some of the damage you do heals them. Support mains in the chat may have to. My mouse cursor disappeared again. Last week I had this issue again, but it's doing it again. Where I can see where it's actually hovering over things, but I can't actually actively search the internet. The other one is Zeke's. Gosh, I called it is it Harbinger or Convergence?
Oh man, it is Convergence.
Zeke's Convergence. Now, Conduit, you designate an allied champion as the accomplice, forming a tether between you and them, and this is where anytime you lay down some CC on the enemy, you end up amplifying the damage that your tethered teammate does to them. So definitely some really cool teammates or items here, especially if you have an uber-fed teammate and you just want to keep buffing them up and keep them alive and help them do more damage. These are definitely 2 items to go with.
Yeah, and that's what I think of when I see these items, right? I think of like a MMORPG where it's like, all right, stack your buffs and let's see what they can do. Yeah, I love the idea of being able to help your teammate out with a specific item. Same thing with like, well, I'll save that for next, but same thing with some of the other support items where you build it and it's less for you. It's a very selfless buy. So very, very fun item.
Yeah, for sure. So let's get into these other two, because I know you want to talk about these two. We have Redemption, which has some really cool plays. We'll talk about that. And then we have, now it's Mikael's Blessing, correct?
I think so. It should be Mikael's Blessing.
Redemption. Yeah,
yes,
do that for
Mikael's
me.
Blessing.
I have so many items in my head, but we have Redemption here. Its active is called Intervention. This is where it calls down this gigantic circle of light. It heals your allies within the circle based on their level, and enemy champions take 10% of their maximum health as true damage. You can also use this item active while dead, which is really cool, but you cannot use it if you buy it after you die. So if you die and you're like, I still want to contribute to the fight, let me open up my shop real quick and buy Redemption and then cast it. You can't do that. You have to be alive when you buy it. Yeah, but have you seen neutral objective steals with Redemption?
I have seen neutral objectives.
Those are super hype.
Yeah, it's very fun. Is that still something that happens, or did they change that? Because this description makes it sound like it's just enemy champions.
Maybe they did change it, but I remember being able to steal with Redemption.
Oh, I remember it happening for sure. I just don't remember. It hasn't happened in ages, and I think it's because they changed it.
Maybe, yeah. Now the text does say enemy champions, so I do remember execution snipes, people trying to like surviving a team fight and getting away, and the support wasn't able to use Redemption in time. They could use Redemption from the grave, and getting some cleanup kills with it is a lot of fun for sure. Mikael's Blessing, its active is called Purify, and this was going to kind of go along with the next two items we have, but you remove all crowd control debuffs except for the following: Airborne, Blind, Disarm, Ground, Nearsight, and Suppression from yourself or an allied champion, and heal the target based on their level as well. So this is a really cool item for supports to kind of, if you want to build this, it can save your AD carry an item slot, so you don't have to. They don't have to buy QSS, or what we'll talk about. The other two items we'll talk about next, but definitely involves a lot of trust. If you're if you're an AD carry or a squishy mage or something, and you're counting on your support to build this item and actually use it correctly, it gives the potential for a lot of flame, in the sense of, I counted on you to use this and you didn't use it, but at the same time, it doesn't work on all forms of CC.
Yeah, it's a very interesting item. I've definitely seen some flame regarding it. It's like, why would you get it if you're not going to use it? Oh, I forgot I had it, or it was too quick, I couldn't use it on you in time. So it's a fun one. It's very useful in when you have a good support, or when you're in an organized comps, and you just kind of talk to them about it as it's happening.
Yeah, and when you use an item like this, similar to QSS, it removes all crowd control debuffs that are currently applied. So if the enemy is like layering a bunch of CC all at one time, you will cleanse all of them at once. But if you're waiting for, if you pop this item as soon as the first form of CC hits, then there's going to get hit by the subsequent CC right after. Yeah. So it is kind of niche in that regard, and since that more organized teams, and especially teams of 5, if they're playing a comp that has a lot of CC, they're going to try to layer that CC a little bit more. So they'll wait to use the CC ability until one expires. So I don't think this is really good all the time that the enemy team has crowd control, but if they have like one major crowd control ability, like an Ash Arrow that's a long range, like a super stun if it hits you from base or something, any of these ones that you would have the CC hit, and then there's going to be kind of a delay of time before the other team is able to follow up with it. I think this is a great item to use to kind of free them, so that they can then start to increase the distance before the other team closes the gap, for sure.
I agree.
Next two items are very similar to that. These are ones where you can only cast it on yourself, whereas Mikael's you can cast on yourself or a teammate. These are just for you. They are both built out of Quicksilver Sash, and this is one I found interesting because all three of these items have the same active ability name, whereas if you go back to the Iron Spike Whip, they have different names. So Iron Spike Whip is Crescent, Thirsting Slash, then Halting Slash. So this one, they all built out of QSS, and they all have the same active ability name, even though the active abilities all do something different. So
yeah, it's really interesting.
Literally unplayable. Quicksilver, just the item, the Quicksilver Sash, removes all crowd control debuffs except for Airborne from your champion. So it does a little bit more than Mikael's Blessing. Yeah, Mercurial Scimitar that removes all those crowd control debuffs except for Airborne from your champion, and grants movement speed and ghosting for an additional second. And then you have Silvermere Dawn, which I never see this item.
Yeah, I just went on ahead and looked it up just to check and see if I was just imagining things. No, according to League of Items, it is at a 0.27% pick rate.
That's wild.
So normally when you look at a champ, it'll have you highest win rate champions, highest pick rate champions, champion stats by order. There's not even enough played games to show that. So
wow,
it's just blank.
Yeah, and I think it is too kind of one of those situations. It's fallen into the same realm of Grievous Wounds, where people will just get Oblivion Orb or Executioner's Calling and just sit on it because they value the stats and other items before they complete this. And most games don't go to, okay, everybody's got 6 items. But if you're going to get Quicksilver Sash, then, you know, I don't know, maybe just people aren't finishing it and they just sit on QSS instead.
I think a big part of that as a top lane player is the play style of a typical top lane champion. I mean, this is going to fit mostly in, it doesn't, like, let me check just to make sure, but it gives you a little bit of attack damage. It gives you 40, 300 health, and 35 magic resist. A lot of your top lane champions are already going to have some health, so it's a little less imperative for them to have that QSS because they'll be able to survive that burst or that damage a little bit more than, say, an AD carry would. And especially a tank would not take this because they're just going to eat it, right? They don't need to. Very little of that CC is actually going to be used on them compared to their squishies, and so they'd rather just build the flat stats so that if it does get used on them, they stay alive and they're good to go to fight the rest of that fight. So.
Yeah. For sure. I'll be honest, whenever I was putting this all together and I saw this on there, I was like, that item's not even in the game anymore. And I thought this was like a Twisted Tree Line item or something that was on the list. I thought it was a mistake on the wiki. And I had to confirm, like, oh yeah, this item is really still in the game.
It's just not in your games.
Yeah, that's right.
It's not in any of our games.
Yeah, so its active it does differ a little bit from Mercurial Scimitar. It does, instead of giving you the movement speed after you cleanse the crowd control debuff, it gives you 40% tenacity, 40% slow resist, and ghosting for 3 seconds instead of 1. So I think it is kind of cool in the sense that once you do cleanse it, you then get the additional tenacity. So any subsequent CC that's coming your way is going to be brought in at a reduced rate anyways. So I don't know, like in theory I think it's a good item, but I think you're right. A lot of these items they're not built because the active is bad or the active isn't useful. They're kind of built because the stats, they would just get more value out of other items that have stats at a higher efficiency.
Yeah, and as Delivery Service is saying in our chat, it's just like who are you going to take it against, right? You're going to take it against Malzahar? Well, as a top lane player, who are you? When are you going to get Mouse ulted, right? Like your Malzahar is never going to ult you. They might ult you once or twice at the beginning of the game for a gank, but like they don't want to wait ult on you. Same thing with Mordekaiser. Mordekaiser probably doesn't want to be wasting his ult on you. He wants to be taking out one of the Fed carries or taking out a squishy so that he can beat up on him in the Shadow Realm. And then Skarner, I can't remember the last time I saw Skarner. And sorry, it's just true. I haven't seen Skarner in ages, and also he normally doesn't really force it. So
yeah, and it's just the one, and it's the other interesting thing, I guess, with Malzahar and Skarner, and I would say not Lissandra. Lissandra wouldn't count here, but for Malzahar and Skarner, they can't do really much while that that their ultimate is on anyways. Like Skarner can pull you, but he's not gonna be like actively dishing out a ton of damage, like to try to burst you down during that ult. He's relying on his teammates to do that, or put you in a bad position so that his teammates can collapse on you. Malzahar does do the damage, but it's not this crazy like a burst damage. You typically don't die during the cast of the Malzahar ult. I haven't seen a Malzahar 100-0 somebody just by himself in the ult, unless there's like some crazy circumstance. Right. So I guess that kind of maybe plays in it too. Like, you know, if you're in such a bad position where you're going to be caught by that, and his 4 teammates are going to collapse on you, and your team isn't there anyways, well, you kind of deserve to die. Yeah. At that point. Stasis legendaries. We have 2 of, well, only one of them is a legendary, but we have the stopwatch, of course, commencing stopwatch. Put yourself in stasis for 2.5 seconds, rendering you untargetable and invulnerable for the duration. And we also have that same active for Zanya's Hourglass. So you put yourself in stasis for 2.5 seconds. You're untargetable, invulnerable for the duration, but you also can't move, declare basic attacks, cast abilities, use summoner spells, or activate items. I will say, I always hated this item, like when I first started playing the game, because I was like, this is so dumb. Why would I ever find myself in a position to want to make myself completely useless for 2.5 seconds?
Yeah. Meanwhile, I think it's pretty safe to say that it is probably the most utilized game-changing ability in the game, or item in the game. I mean, it's just, think about the League of Stopwatch whenever that meme was around, when it was just everybody and their mother was taking it in that utility second tree, just that we could all have stopwatches and all have that get out of jail free card. But yeah, I mean, once you learn how to use it, it is such a monumentally useful item. It gets you some time to let cooldowns come off, right? It buys you time during ganks for your team to show up, or forces them to take more turret shots as they're trying to dive you under a tower. It's just such a useful item.
Yeah, I think of it on Fizz. It's really cool because you can troll pull in, you know, kind of blow all your cooldowns, do a lot of burst damage, and then stasis. And then by the time stasis comes off, troll pull's available again. So you basically make yourself invulnerable for that entire fight. You have your E in, which you cannot be targeted. You stasis for another 2.5 seconds, and then you can E directly out of it. It drops turret aggro too. So you mentioned League of Stopwatch. That's when it was like the most egregious, I feel like, were the bottom lane tower dives.
Oh yeah.
Where you've got supports and junglers all had stopwatch, and at the time, if I remember correctly, when you pull in stopwatch from the runes at the time, you did not have the cooldown on it. It was available since level 1.
I do not remember. I know if
or
it wasn't
was it
level
like
1, it was significantly earlier.
Like maybe 3 minutes or something. Like there was, yeah, it was something where it wasn't. What's it now? Like 8 minutes, I think.
Yeah, I think it's pretty deep in there. I think it's at least 6, if not more.
Yeah, if it wasn't available at the start of the game, it was available shortly thereafter, and that's when you would have like all these crazy dives just constantly, and everybody's popping stopwatch to drop turret aggro, and it was kind of exciting, but at the same time, it just came to like, okay, this is if it's
again, come on,
a point where everybody's building it, yeah, it's kind of a problem. There was another. Okay, so do you know the famous League of Legends play named after a player with a stopwatch play?
I have no idea what you're talking about.
Have you heard of the Messiah?
I have not.
Okay, so chat can correct me on this if I'm wrong, but if I'm not mistaken, pulling a Messiah was he would Twisted Fate ult into the middle of an entire enemy team, and as soon as he came out of the ult, he would pop stopwatch, but they would be blowing all their abilities at his location. So he blew a lot of their cooldowns by Destiny gating into the enemy team, popping stopwatch as soon as he arrived. They wasted all their cooldowns, and then the rest of his team could collapse when they had no abilities.
That is super interesting.
Yeah. So you'll have to fact check me on that, but I'm pretty sure Misaya.
I'm watching one right now. This is mind blowing.
Yeah, so
the
just ult
into the middle of the team, pulls the stopwatch, and then just baits everything. It's
yeah,
awesome.
yeah, it's pretty cool. So like everybody knows the insec, which has gotten easier over time as people have gotten better. But you don't see the Messiah very often. But it is a legendary stopwatch play. Definitely check that out. And our final active item, and as I'm going through this list, I realized that I forgot the Vigilant Wardstone and the Elixirs. We could have covered Elixirs, but whatever. Last one is a champion-specific active. You only see this item in the game if there's a Callista. Or if you're, I believe if you're Silas playing into a Callista, maybe... I can't remember, but either way, if you're playing Callista, you start the game with this item. This is the Black Spear, and you activate it. It's called Oathsworn Bond after a 3.5-second cast time and a 3-second channel afterwards from the user and the target allied champion. Both become bound allies. The target is unable to act for 6 seconds after the channel's duration. Afterwards, the target is dubbed Oathsworn. So, PSA, do not use this when you're in lane.
It's not like a Knight's Vow or a Zeke's where it just happens immediately and then that's it. There's like a whole cutscene.
Yeah, it's bad.
So it's I've definitely messed up a couple times where I forgot to do it in Fountain, and then we're in the jungle, and then boom, right as it happens, and we're using it. We get invaded, and it's just an instant death.
Yeah, so that you can definitely troll your support teammate. So if you have a friend that you're duoing with and you want to go into some normals and have a little fun, pick Callista, but don't Oathsworn him until you're in the middle of lane, and see how they react. Definitely troll worthy. Not many items you can troll your teammates with. That is 100% one of them for sure. All right, well, that is going to do it for Season 2. That my slide here says Episode 8. That is incorrect. This is Episode 9, so we're going to go ahead and take that off the screen. Now, don't forget about next week. We have a very special guest. Gavin, CEO and co-founder of Gwoop, will be joining us. So if you want a little bit of preview of what they're up to, check them out at gwoop.com. That's GWOOP.com. Check them out for sure, and then get your questions ready. We'll see the listener feedback form dropped in the Coach Rivals Discord. Submit those questions for Gavin to answer live here on Rift Happens next week. I'm looking forward to it. Lucas, you getting your questions ready?
Oh, absolutely. I cannot wait. This is going to be great.
Yeah, it's going to be fun. It's just going to be really exciting just to have him in here and get that. I've also got some other emails in the works, reaching out to some other orgs. I can't divulge anything yet because I don't have firm commitments. But as I'm getting more commitments, I will let that information out. I'm also looking maybe to get some college coaches in here so we can talk about their programs for our Scholastic coaches to kind of talk about what are they looking for from our high school players to help them get to that stage. Maybe let them come in and give a pitch for what their program is, and maybe we'll pick some coaches from different regions of the country. I'm brainstorming here. I don't know if these are good ideas or not, but
well, just let me know. I mean, I got some connections with those college coaches. So
hey, well, all right. Well, right here, I'm putting you on the spot. You can go ahead and line up our first one. How's that?
Sounds good. I got you.
Sweet. Awesome. Well, everybody, thank you so much for joining us. That's going to do it for Season 2, Episode 9. Don't forget, catch us next week where we have CEO and co-founder of Gwoop. Gavin is going to be with us. Look forward to see you then. Lucas, have a fantastic week, and we'll see everybody next time.
Catch y'all next time.